Welcome friends to the Pioneer Academy. Today we are going to take a look into what the Pioneer Academy is and why I am so excited to have you all here. So let's get this started. The Pioneer Academy, or short PICAD, attempts to develop the most important knowledge. Now you might ask, what does it mean, the most important knowledge? And I mean the most important knowledge overall. Of all the possible knowledge we could have, the most important one. And the reason this is important is obvious, right? If we knew the most important knowledge, we could make tremendous progress. And the definition of important should be universal. So it starts with our purpose. What are we here to do? What is our purpose? What is our goal? That is a very important piece of knowledge, and we will find an answer pretty quickly to that. And then it all goes into tools. And the tools are the long tail of that big question, right? Once you know what your goal is, or what all our goals are, or the ultimate goal for all of us, the question is, how do we get there? And that answer is a long answer, and it requires tremendous amounts of knowledge. But this knowledge needs to be adjusted and aligned to a reality, and we need to make sure that it's the right pieces of knowledge in the right order. It's also the question of the network, the pioneers, the people who can make things happen, and the knowledge how we build that network and how we bring us all together to achieve something great, to build and engineer the future. And finally, it is a specific subset of knowledge that I call wisdom. The knowledge to understand what are the right goals and what are the right actions that allow us to continue doing great things and not do something really stupid that might end our great adventure that we call civilization. Now, the second important piece is that all knowledge is relative to our goals. So here we go a little bit into what philosophers call epistemology, the theory of knowledge itself. So in order to build that knowledge, we have to understand what knowledge is. And actually, most people are not totally aware that knowledge is something very relative. You can't have absolute knowledge. You can only know something in relation to a goal. And here's why. Let me give you a quick example. This is very important down the line. So let us ask the question what a room is, right? A room, like here, where I'm sitting at right now. And you would think, well, there might be a clear answer, but there is no clear answer. Because a room you could describe as, well, it's a space surrounded by four walls where you can sit in and do stuff. But, other people would see that very differently. For example, a painter would say, well, there are different types of rooms. Right? There are wooden rooms with wooden walls, or there's like wallpaper rooms, or there are concrete rooms, because the painter has a very specific perspective on rooms, because they want to paint it. Their goal is to paint. So they will describe rooms in very different ways and categorize the class of rooms in very different ways. A chemist who is in charge of constructing buildings and invent new materials would also say, well, it depends. There are certain rooms and certain types of buildings that are looking like that, and they have a different makeup. And then theoreticists would say, well, a room consists of, the upper area of the room, the middle area of the room, and the lower area of the room. Right? So there's a floor, there's a ceiling, there are walls. A sociologist would say, well, there are rooms for social gatherings, there are storage rooms, and so on and so forth. So when you ask what a room is and what class of rooms exist, the knowledge you're generating will depend completely on your perspective and your goals. That is true for the concept and the question what a room is. But that's also true for any other question we ask. So it's very important that actually all descriptions of all knowledge in the world can only be given once you determine your goal. Of course, in everyday life, right, if you ask where's food or what is food, we all know implicitly what we want to do with the food we want to eat. But that's not necessarily what all people want to do. Some people want to produce food, and they will categorize it very differently. Some people have to maybe, burn food because they're the business of getting rid of excess food. They will categorize food very differently. So, in other words, it's very important that goals and missions and purpose are not just one little thing. They are the foundational thing that we have to understand in order to even define knowledge, in order to even generate knowledge. And it's a big failure of philosophical inquiry that this awareness is unfortunately missing. When you read philosophical treatises, they often ask the question, what is freedom? What is liberty? What is God? And they never answer the question in relation to what? What's your goal? What do you want? Otherwise, I can't answer that question. Is liberty a concept that you want to build a political revolution around? Is liberty a question where you strive for your own personal insight? I need to understand that in order to give you a definition and actually develop the knowledge that is relevant. Now, talking about goals and the importance of goals in generating this knowledge we are generating here at the Pioneer Academy, I want to shortcut some things here, and we are going to go in depth more in other units of the Pioneer Academy. But it's very important that we can already recognize an ultimate goal for all of us. And that ultimate goal is human progress. Now I'm jumping the gun a little bit here because it's very important that we set this straight. All knowledge we are generating here at the Pioneer Academy, that we attempt to generate together with you, is knowledge that's aligned to this ultimate goal. How do we generate universal human progress? That is what we have to have in mind when we explore reality. And progress is defined as human value over time. Per time period, you're generating human value. That is progress. And it's not about actually achieving that specific piece of human value. No, it's about getting into a continuous upward slope of progress and staying on that upward slope forever. That is actually the purpose of all of us. Because whatever other purpose we have is subordinate to this purpose. It's part of that great trajectory of progress. And so when we ask what is health, what is life, what is community, what is medical artificial intelligence, what is genomics, what is energy, what is education, what is capital, we always answer these questions in regards to this ultimate goal. And that makes the Pioneer Academy so valuable. Because when we tell you what something is and make this proposal to you and you can give us feedback, then we are not saying random things. We are saying and describing reality in a way that makes it engineerable in the sense of pushing human progress forward. And so how do we generate this knowledge at the Pioneer Academy? Well, there's only one way to generate real knowledge. And that way is what I call the engineering cycle. Because you can only generate real deep knowledge about anything, from your personal life goals to your financial goals to startups, raising capital, creating innovation, creating scientific breakthroughs. You can only develop this knowledge how to do these things and what really matters about reality in order to make it engineerable. You can only develop that knowledge if you try to change the world. Because only in interaction and iteration with the world can you figure out what this what is actually has to look like. So there's a certain process that I call the engineering cycle. We will go into that in a different knowledge unit. And that engineering cycle is you start to observe the world or learn about the world by looking at it or reading about it or talking with other people about it. Then you imagine. You imagine your goals. You imagine what you just learned, how it might be applicable to changing the world. Then you're building something. And then you learn from the clash between what you build and you intended to build to what it actually does and how it might fail. And then you repeat. In other words, you learn through observation, you imagine, you build, you learn again, you repeat. You reimagine, rebuild, and relearn and repeat. That's how you generate knowledge. And I call that the reality engineering cycle or reality engineering attempt. I'm just telling you that here because that is the explanation how the Pioneer Academy actually generates knowledge that is deep and true and effective. So obviously, of all the things we can focus at, a very special focus will be health. Health in the sense of healthcare and medicine, longevity, and all these great topics. Why? Of all the things you can think about in life, you need to start at a point where you have a highly valuable topic and area of inquiry that is concrete enough to make a real difference in people's lives. And that also provides an enormous challenge and reward when you make progress. Basically a huge reality engineering blue ocean opportunity. Now, why do we pick health? Because when you think about it, what is the most important topic to go from a philosophical evaluation of the world into actual engineering? What is the field of life that offers the greatest challenges and the greatest rewards if you would solve problems? And the answer is it's health, it's medicine, it's healthcare. Because if we solve problems, we will save lives. And saving lives, by definition, is the most valuable thing you can do as a human. Because everyone cares mostly about their own life and the lives of their loved ones, because any other objective, capital, education, culture, even love, even community, industrial questions like energy, intelligence, and space, they're all subordinate to the big question of life. If you're dead, you cannot create value. That's why I think health is not a random starting point, it's the ultimate starting point, where we can, train our knowledge, train the engineering cycle, and see what we can do. And impress the world when we are right. And when we are wrong, learn quickly that we are not making progress. But health is just a starting point. All the other topics of life that are relevant will follow. And health is the great starting point that should not prevent us from expanding into the key areas of human civilization and life. And these areas can be described through what I call the 9 supercores, the super cores of reality engineering. Health, love, and community, the personal areas of life that are most important. Followed by education, capital, and culture, the civilizational areas that are most important. And then energy, intelligence, and space, the industrial areas that allow us to shape the physical universe. By applying the engineering cycle and our ability to produce the world's most valuable knowledge to these 9 areas, we can make the greatest progress. Now, that is the objective of the Pioneer Academy. And the final principle describing the Pioneer Academy is that we do this together. No one can generate all that knowledge, especially not in the right way and in the most effective way alone. So we need to do it together. And what I'm trying to do here with the Pioneer Academy is get the people in who are most excited about these topics, the ultimate topic of life, of generating the right knowledge around the most impactful areas of life, and join forces in doing so. Because if there's one thing we can do in life that is the absolute most rewarding thing, it is to generate relevant, impactful knowledge and share it with the world so everyone can learn and everyone can contribute, so we can also learn from everyone else. So we start with a thesis, for example, here the Pioneer Academy thesis that you're just watching, and then we get everyone's input who wants to add something in the comment or write emails about it or write a blog post about it. We do iterations and we approximate more and more what I call effectiveness, effective knowledge over time. We learn from each other and we create joint progress. And it's all about building a culture of creation. Creation, not just in the sense of knowledge creation, but creation in the sense of creating knowledge that allows us to create new worlds and new futures. And that ultimately begins and ends with the Pioneer Network, right? To make the Pioneer Academy and the knowledge engineering attempt here, a unifying component to bring together the people who actually are interested in these foundational questions of life. So I hope that is something interesting to you and you're joining us here, watch some more videos and participate in that great knowledge engineering attempt. See you around.